We'll have a prayer and ask God to be with us here. Kind Lord, we thank you for your presence with us as we meet together and as we learn about life. Thank you for Dr. Sandoval and his sharing his heart with us and his knowledge and experience. Bless him again tonight as he shares. And may we sense your guiding in our lives and your hand on our hearts. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
So, thank you. Has it been challenging so far? Yeah. Good. It needs to be, because we need to be challenged. There's a clipboard going around for those that are interested in ministry information later. Some of you have already signed up. You can just pass it around for those that haven't. We want to get into the heart. I want to get into the heart tonight. And when I'm talking about the heart, I'm not talking about the blood pumping muscle. The heart is a part of the mind, right? It's a function or a capacity of the mind. And that function or capacity of the mind is something that ultimately ends up driving decisions, right? And is a primary driver of decisions. And the heart evaluates information in a particular way. It's different than the conscience evaluates information. The conscience evaluates information based upon truth and error, good and evil, right and wrong. That's how the conscience evaluates information. The heart evaluates information based upon gain and loss. Gain and loss. So everything from the heart standpoint is evaluated on a gain and loss system. And you and I are created in such a way so that we say yes to gain and we say no to loss. Right? That's just how we're wired, is to go for the gain and to avoid the loss. For example, let's say that there were only 2 doors in this room. And if you wanted to go out of the room, which there's no food, there's no water, there's no bathroom, there's no any of that kind of stuff. So if you want to leave the room, if you go out the brown door, I will pay you $1,000. If you go out the black door, you pay me $1,000. Which door are you going out? All right. Well, you're going out the brown door. Why? Because if you're confronted between a gain and a loss, you're always going to choose the gain over the loss. Now, if you have the brown door, black door scenario, but this time if you go out the brown door, I'm going to pay you $1,000, but if you go out the black door, I'm going to pay you $10. Which door are you going out? Well, you're still going out the brown door. Why? Because if you're confronted between 2 gains, you're always going to choose the greater gain over the smaller gain. Okay? And finally, brown door, black door, if you go out the black door, you pay me $1,000. If you go out the brown door, you pay me $10. Which door are you going out? You're going out the brown door. Because if you're confronted between 2 losses, you are always going to choose the smaller loss over the greater loss. So we're always going toward the gain. We're always going away from the loss, right? Always toward the gain and always away from the loss. And Jesus said in Matthew 6:21, he said, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. You know, there's all of these wonderful little treasure troves that the scriptures give to us and bring to us. And so what is Jesus saying here? Well, he's showing us that there is a system of evaluation in the heart. And it's the system by which we determine whether something is a gain or a loss, and how valuable something is, and that is then a function of the heart. And based upon that evaluation, we make our decisions. Right? We make our decisions based upon gain and loss. Now, because we function this way, then when it comes to temptation, the enemy cannot tempt us to lose, because loss is no temptation. Right? We are not attracted to loss. For example, here's some poison, and it will kill you. It'll kill you slowly, maybe over months and years. It'll be very painful while you die, and there's no antidote to it. And it tastes really absolutely nasty, horrible. Want some? No? No takers? You sure?
Yes.
All right. Well, no, you're not going to take it. Why? Because loss has no attraction to us. Right? We are not attracted to loss. We go away from loss, we go towards gain. So if the enemy wanted to tempt humanity into sin, it would not have been nice for him to come about doing it this way. Because, to say, okay, well, to come looking hideous and to present to Adam and Eve something and say, all right, well, here, this is going to kill you. It'll make you lose everything that you love. Death will come and take over this planet. There'll be suffering and all of this kind of stuff. Want some? No? Really? Come on. You guys. No, that's not how it works, right? He knows. He knows how the human heart works. And so he knows that if he's going to get us, if he's going to tempt us, what he has to do is he has to trick us into believing that loss is gain and gain is loss. He has to get our evaluation system and turn it upside down, right? Turn it upside down. And indeed, that's what happened and why we find ourselves in the situation that we do. Because in the Garden of Eden, God said, you can eat of every tree of the garden. But there's this tree in the middle of the garden. Don't eat that one. Don't eat from that one, right? The tree of knowledge of good and evil. And so God said, if you eat from that tree, you'll lose. If you don't eat from it, of course, you gain. Oh, great. So what happened? Well, Genesis chapter 3, beginning in verse 1. Now the serpent was more cunning than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made, and he said to the woman, has God indeed said, you shall not eat of every tree of the garden? Now it didn't dawn on me until recently how ingenious this question is. It really is an ingenious question. Why? Because if Eve answers him one way, she's wrong. And if she answers him the other way, she's wrong too. He asks a question in such a way that if she goes on defense of God one way, she's going to be wrong. And if she goes on defense on God the other way, according to the question, she's going to be wrong too. I.e., all right, if God is the creator and he is good, has he made something bad? No. Okay, then the tree is good. Why is he withholding good from you? And the other side, okay, so if God made it, is it bad? Well, no, it's not bad. All right, is it bad? Yes, it's bad. Okay, who made it? God did. So he must be bad. Right? So he asks the question in such a way that he gets her both ways, one way or the other. And so Eve goes on defense of God. The woman said to the serpent, we may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God has said, you shall not eat it, nor shall you touch it, lest you die. Then the serpent said to the woman, Eve, I came to this tree months ago, and I ate its fruit. And the moment that I ate its fruit, I could think, I could reason, I could perceive, I could understand. I had powers and capacities I didn't even know were possible to me. And God knows that you are so much greater than me at your creation, so that when you eat this fruit, you will be like God, knowing good and evil. But if you don't, well, you'll never know what you're missing out on. Right? Anybody ever flown anywhere? Yeah. I flew here. I've flown a whole bunch of places. There's, well, the rare exception to this is when I landed in, here in Walla Walla. and that is we deplane from the back of the airplane. Usually you plane and you deplane from the front. And when you walk into the airplane at the front, you walk into a situation that looks nice. It's called first class, right? So you walk into first class and you're like, oh, this is going to be nice. But you look at your row number and you go, hang on, no, that's gone, no, that's gone, no, that's gone, no, that's gone, oh, no, that's gone. And then you look at the rest of it and you go, oh, not so nice. Right? So God created Adam and Eve for first class. And to have first class, he withheld from them economy. But now Satan comes along and he says, Eve, what are you doing in economy? First class is over there. Huh. Was it true? No, it was a lie. It was based on a false error, right? And so, okay, it's over there, right? First class is over there. Really? You mean what God withheld from you is better than what God gave to you? That was the implication, right? Why did he have to present the temptation that way? Because the heart will only give up a gain if it's presented with something. What's that? A greater gain. The heart will only give up a gain if it's presented with a greater gain. So the only way that Satan could get Eve to give up the gain she had was to present to her a gain that was greater than what she had. But was there a gain greater than what she had? No, it was only a deception. It was only a deception. But according to the heart, which goes after gain and greater gain and greater gain, in the deception, she saw what was loss as gain. And now she went for it. God said, if you eat it, you lose. The enemy came along and said, if you eat it, you gain. God said, if you don't eat it, you gain. And the enemy said, if you don't eat it, you lose. Just took the evaluation system, turned it upside down. And what happened? Well, when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, when she believed the lie, then when she believed the lie, then to her the tree was good. It was good. Good for food. It was pleasant to the eyes. And a tree desirable to make one wise. Is wisdom wrong? No. So the enemy tempted her by something that is good. Because God did not create Adam and Eve with a desire for evil. He only created them with a desire and a need for good. And he only created them with the ability to go for gain, not to go for loss. But the only way that that could get messed up is deception. Deception. And that's exactly what happened. And when that happened, she could not help but take its fruit and eat it, because you always do what's a gain. You always do what's a gain. And in that moment, her world turned upside down. And Adam, when he joined her, his world turned upside down. And every child born to Adam and Eve has been born upside down. Upside down. And when you're born upside down, guess what? It looks right side up. And so we've been upside down thinking we're right side up. And of course, he told her, you will be like God. Is it possible we believe that today? Well, let's look. So let's take this heart that goes for gain, avoids loss. It has expectations for sure, right? There are expectations that one has. let's throw in that heart human love. Remember, we looked at this yesterday. Human love invests in others, right? Human love gives to others with an expectation of receiving, right? So human love gives in order to receive. It's an investment, putting something of value in someone else so that I can get something of greater value back. So if I give in order to receive, if that's my love, then what's my gain? My gain is to receive. And the more I can receive, the more gain that I have. Now, as long as I receive enough, I'm still in the land of gain. It's okay, right? But if I could receive more, well, it'd be even better. Right? So Aunt Matilda died. Nobody has an Aunt Matilda. Anyways, if you do, I'm sorry. This is not for you. But anyways, so Aunt Matilda dies, and you met her once at a family reunion, and she puts you in her will, and you get $5,000. Is that a gain or a loss? Well, it's a gain, of course, right? You weren't expecting anything. Your expectation was down at 0, and that was 5,000. That was more than 0. It's a gain. Or you met Aunt Matilda once at a family reunion, and that was it. And she dies, and she puts you in the will, and you get $5 million. Which one's better? Oh, $5 million, right? Which one would you rather have? Yeah, sure, $5 million. Yeah, greater gain. Well, what if you took care of Aunt Matilda for the last 10 years of her life, and she deteriorated during the process, and her dementia was coming along, and she gave you a few black eyes with those, stop doing that, and you slaved over her, and you had to clean her bed, and you had to take her to appointments, and your life was just consumed by Aunt Matilda. And you knew she was loaded. And those deadbeat, good-for-nothing children of hers never called, never came, never took care of it. No, nothing. You were the one that did everything. And when she dies, that will is divvied up, and you get $5,000. Gain or loss? And the children get millions. Is it a gain or a loss? All right. We consider it to be a loss. But did we actually receive anything? Yeah. The moment before we received it, we didn't have it, and when we got it, we have $5,000 more than what we had before. So we actually had a gain, but we consider it to be a loss. Why? Because it's less than what we expect, right? So we can still be receiving, but at loss because our receiving is less than our expectation. Now, what's worse than receiving less than what you expect? Yeah, not receiving nothing. And what's worse than that? Yeah, having to pay, losing your treasure. Right? So you have different gains and you have different losses and in this heart. You've got greater gains, smaller losses, greater losses, and that evaluation system then comes together to determine how we decide what we do. Right? So let's throw that evaluation system in the context of a relationship. So you have a young man, young woman, they meet each other maybe on a college campus somewhere. And there's this kind of zzz thing. I don't have to explain that, do I? Okay. All right, I think everybody got it. So there's that zzz thing that happens, and so he likes that, and well, you want more, right? You want more. So if you have human love gives in order to receive. So if you want more, what do you have to do? Give more, that's right. So you need to give some attention so that you can receive some attention, right? And you hope that you can receive more attention as you give more attention. And maybe you give a teddy bear. But you hope to receive some acceptance, because acceptance is more important to you than a teddy bear. You might give flowers, but you're hoping for harmony to get along with, right? Because harmony is more important to you than flowers. You give time, but you're looking for belonging, right? So we will give things so that we can receive things. And so if he's giving like this and she's receiving, does she like to receive? Yes. And if she wants more, what does she need to do? Give more, right? So she's going to give attention so she can receive attention. And he gave attention so that he can receive attention. And both are receiving attention. Are they happy? Yes. But do you ever stay happy with the level that you're at? No, you always want more. That's right. So you need to give more so that you can receive more. And you do, and each enjoys that, and it's wonderful. And you keep going, and you give more and receive more. And you start with superficial little talks about pets and weather and other things like that. But as you go along, you get to deeper and longer conversations. And, at the beginning, it's a little passing, see each other, say hello and whatever. But it gets to longer talks and walks and so on. And it just gets deeper and more and bigger. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful. You could pull both feet off the ground. I can't right now, but, my wife's not with me, but, it's like you're floating. Life is just beautiful. And so eventually he gets the idea, you know what? I think she's a permanent gain. When you think they're a permanent gain, what must you do? Set the hook. Right? Got to set the hook. You got to get the commitment. Right? So you might have to get past Papa Bear. And there's some stuff. But so you ask her to marry you. And if you're number one on the list, what is she going to say? Yes, she has to say yes, because you got to go after your greatest gain. If you're number two on the list, what's she going to say? No, because she's waiting for number one. That's right. Until number one drags their feet too long, and she thinks, well, number one might never come around. Number two's here. And number two becomes number one, right? Then she says, yes, right? So, this is how the heart works, right? How it functions. And so they get engaged, and the giving, receiving, and everything continues on, and then they get married. And then there's a honeymoon, and then what? Everything goes in reverse. Teddy bears get smaller, flowers get fewer, walks get shorter, talks get more superficial, and everything goes in reverse. And, if you've gone fishing and you caught the fish, it takes a lot to catch the fish. You got to have the boat, and you got to tackle, and you got to have the bait, and you got to have all this kind of stuff. But once you catch the fish, it's not that, it's not that complicated. You just have to have the bucket. The fish tank. But fish tanks nowadays are really expensive, and so are fishmobiles. And so you've got to go to work, and, so you don't get to spend as much time together, and so you're not paying as much attention, and you don't have as much time. And so what do you have to do if they're not giving as much? You got to lower your expectations so that you're not in loss, right? So you reason these things out. You say, well, they can't spend all the time with me, and yes, they need to work, and they need to, and so on. And so you lower your expectations, and then they give less, and you lower your expectations, and then they give less, and you lower your expectations, and give less, and lower, and less, and lower, and less, and lower. And eventually somebody says, you know what? Enough is enough. I'm not lowering my expectations anymore. Now, if the other individual is now living below the level of your expectations, are you in gain or loss? Loss. You got to do something about it. You can't just stay in loss without trying to do something about it. So now we have problems. So what do? Well, you intervene. You know what an intervention is. Oh, you don't have me anymore. We haven't gone on any dates, and you haven't got me flowers, and you forgot the last anniversary, and this and that. Why don't you just love me? Can't you give me flowers? Let's go on a date. Let's go pay attention to me and all that kind of stuff. That was an intervention, right? And so if the other person starts giving above the level of your expectations after that intervention, well, hey, great. Life's good. But if they don't, you're still stuck in loss. Well, you didn't convince them. Maybe the pastor will. Or the counselor. Somebody else to fix them so that they come above the level of your expectations. And if that doesn't work, maybe you have to get his mom involved. Mom will fix him, all right? She can intervene. If that doesn't work and you're stuck in loss, there's only one way that you can remain in loss, that you can choose to remain in loss. And that is by choosing this loss, I avoid a greater loss. Right? By choosing this loss, I avoid a greater loss. So what might be the greater loss? Well, the greater loss might be a loss of reputation. It might be a loss of finances. It might be a loss of children. It might be a loss of, you name it, right? It might be a loss of God's favor because he hates divorce, right? So you will accept the lesser loss of the marriage and the way things are going in order to avoid the greater loss of whatever the greater loss is. But if somebody ever comes along and talks you out of the greater loss, then guess what? Now you're at the greatest loss and you must say no to the greater loss. So that's when you have separation. That's when you have divorce. Or you can just go fishing again. So why is it that we have counseling? Why is it that we have infidelity? Why is it that we have separation and divorce and all this kind of stuff going on? It's because this is the heart that we have, and this is the love that we live by. It drives all of that, right? It's why we make these decisions and why we do these things. And this heart believes it's mine, right? I have it. It's my possession. I can produce it. I created it. It came from me, and I am my own to do whatever I want to with me. Now, how many things that you have do you have? What if it belongs to you? Nothing. So what if you play with it and you deal with it and you use it as if it's yours but it's not yours? What character quality goes behind that? Let's say you've got two children and it's Christmas time. One of them just got a Tonka truck and they're out there in the sandbox playing with it and so on. And another kid comes along and he says, mine. Takes it away from that one and plays with it and won't let the other one play with it. You would say that child was? Selfish. That's right. So to believe that it's mine, it's my possession, selfishness. And to think that I can produce anything on my own and on my own to do whatever I want to with me, what goes behind that? Pride. Pride. So, the motivation for why this heart does what it does is nothing other than selfishness and pride. That's it. That's all this heart can come up with for everything it does. Everything. The dating relationship where you're giving more to receive more and giving more to receive more and everything is wonderful and it's all exciting and you're up on cloud 9. Selfishness and pride. The legal battle at divorce and the separation of the family and the children and the finances and battling over possessions and other things like that, selfishness and pride. Relationships with others and the motivation for why we do what we do, selfishness and pride. We cannot come up with any other motivation for anything we do. We can't. Because this is our inheritance from Adam and Eve. Welcome to an upside-down world. Now, if you don't take it from me, at least take it from God. Isaiah 64 and verse 6. But we are all, how many? All like an unclean thing, and how much? All our righteousnesses are like filthy rags. We all fade as a leaf, and our iniquities like the wind have taken us away. All right, so how is it that all of our righteousnesses are like filthy rags? Aren't they righteous if they're righteous? The righteousness of an act is not the act. The righteousness of an act is the motivation behind the act. If the motivation is right, the act will be right. But if the act itself is right, that does not necessarily mean the motivation was right. And God does not account that righteous, which was a good action, from a bad motive. The only thing that's accounted righteous is that which is a good action from the right motive. And all our righteousnesses are like filthy rags. He also says, what can selfishness and pride do? Paul tells us, selfishness and pride can speak with the tongues of men and of angels. Selfishness and pride can have the gift of prophecy, can understand all mysteries and all knowledge. Selfishness and pride can have all faith so that I could remove mountains. It looks really good. And selfishness and pride can bestow all my goods to feed the poor, can even give your body to be burned in the flames for your name or reputation's sake. You can lose all still for a selfish motive. And when that's the case, many will be surprised. Matthew 7:22 and 23. Many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in your name? These are prophets. Have we not cast out demons in your name? Here are the exorcists. And done many wonders in your name. Here's the miracle workers. I mean, these are like the pinnacle of Christianity. And then I will declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you who practice lawlessness. How can he say that? Because there's one thing that God recognizes as his own, and that is selfless, self-sacrificing love. And if it's not that, it's not his. If it's not that, it's not his. Paul also tells us in Romans 8 and verse 7, the carnal mind is enmity, hatred against God. For it is not subject to the law of God, nor indeed can be. It is impossible for this heart to submit itself to God's law. Impossible. Because its gains are outside of the law. And it sees inside of the law as its losses. It sees loss of freedom inside, gain of freedom outside. Because it's crazy, it's backwards, it sees it the wrong way. Revelation 3:17, you say, I am rich and have become wealthy and have need of nothing and do not know that you are wretched, miserable, poor, blind, and naked. Welcome to the human condition. God's been trying to tell us for thousands of years, you're crazy. You're crazy. I'll add another one. My thoughts are not your thoughts. Nor are your ways my ways, says the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. So, as if it weren't bad enough, it gets worse. in the universe can give first? God. Because he can create and give. Can you give first? No. You must first receive to have so that you can give. You cannot give what you do not have. So if you have a love that gives first in order to receive, who are you? You're God. You're God. So, our love, the love that we have for our friends and family and God and whoever else, the very best we think we have puts us in the place of God. And the word says, you shall have no other gods before me. So even in our love, we break his commandments. It's the very first one. And of course, you break one, you've broken them all. So we're commandment breakers even in the best that we think we have. And the other God that stands before God? The other Trinity. Me, myself, and I. So I'm number one in my life. What I want, what I desire, what I wish, what I need comes first. God comes somewhere down the line. And this heart, which believes in God, that believes that it is God, that believes that it's mine, is actually a slave to others. It's in abject slavery. Why? Because I see others as the source of my gains. Because my gain is to receive. But I cannot receive unless you give. And so you are my source. And I'm dependent upon what you give in order for me to receive, in order for me to gain. And so now I am dependent upon you. You're my source. And if you don't behave well, I must have to try to fix you so that you behave well. You always must try to control a source you cannot trust. You always must try to control a source you cannot trust. So we attempt to control others, and the control can be from the good side or the bad side. We love good controllers, good manipulators, right? The good controllers and the good manipulators are the ones that are happy-go-lucky, give you a smile, give you a hug, give you an encouraging word, pat you on the back, come on, get out there, go get it, buddy. Those are the ones we love. Why? Because in the process of their manipulation, we receive, and that's our gain, is to receive. And as long as we receive from them, we're happy to be manipulated by them. And we're happy to give back so that we can receive more back again. That's fine. We love that manipulation, but it's still for the purpose of receiving. It's still in this heart. It's still with its mind. It's still as a God. It's still manipulation. But then there's manipulation from the other side. And that's through threats. It's through guilt trips. It's through abuse. It's through abandonment. It's through these various different things. Why? Because fear is a powerful motivator. And the one who uses that manipulation, that negative manipulation, using fear to keep one, is a slave to the one that they do that to because they see them as their source and they don't want to lose the source. And if the source is not behaving well, you want to do whatever you think will be necessary in order to make them behave well so that they will be a good source for you. It's pure evil. It's pure evil. But guess what? It's every one of us. It's every one of us. Because we all have this heart. We're told the heart is deceitful above all things and what? Desperately wicked. Who can know it? So crazy. There's nothing more crazy than the human heart. If you take a ball and you put it on this hill, which way is it going to roll? Down. If you put it there 1,000 times, how many times is it going to go down? 1,000 times. Every time you put it there, it's going to go down. Downhill for the human heart is wickedness. And uphill, righteousness. It will always, every time, go for wickedness. But it doesn't go for wickedness thinking it's going for wickedness. It goes for wickedness thinking it's going for righteousness. All right. So what does it mean to be desperate? The heart is desperate above all things, right? Or wicked above all, right? Desperate of all, no. Deceitful above all things and desperately wicked, right? So what does it mean to be desperate? Well, imagine being in the desert and you've been there for a couple of days and you've run out of water and your lips and tongue are cracked and bleeding and they're stuck to the roof of your mouth and you've got this, you're just so, you're hot and you can't, you stop sweating because you don't have enough fluid to do that with, and you've got this pounding headache and you're feeling sick to your stomach and you're getting weak and you know you're not going to last very long. And off in the distance you see table, pitcher, water. Maybe it's even glistening with some drops on the outside. But in between you and that table with water is a huge cactus patch. And the cactus patch is a few 100 feet deep and it is miles wide. There's no way of getting around it and you surviving. Are you going to face the cactus to get to the water? Will you? Yeah, most will. Why? Because you're desperate. You're desperate, right? You will face anything in order to get the objectives that you need because you're desperate for it. Now, what is the water to this heart? Wickedness. It's wickedness. It's gain, you're right, it's gain. But we see wickedness as gain because the deception has it backwards. Right? So, my father used to climb mountains. He grew up on the West Coast here. So he climbed Mount Rainier and Mount Hood and the Three Sisters and Mount Shasta and so on. Why do people climb mountains? Yeah, because it's there. I grew up in Florida. The only mountain we could climb was a city called Mount Dora. Highest elevation in Florida is like 300 and some feet. And it's just going for a walk up to Bok Towers. That's it. And so anyways, yeah, you climb mountains. Why? God has created us with a desire to overcome, to achieve, to accomplish, and so on. And when you see something like that before you, people want to get it, and they want to get to the top, and you climb, and you get to the top, and when you do, especially individuals that are really doing some hard ones, like Mount McKinley, or they go off to Mount Everest, and you get to the top of Mount Everest, there is such an exhilaration, you're short of breath, but there's an exhilaration of having made it. But what happens when you get to the top of the mountain and your whole world's upside down? You just climbed to the bottom thinking you went to the top. Welcome to the deception of the human heart. So if we're that crazy, which we are, how is God ever going to get us out of the craziness? Because God has created the soul to be impenetrable. Impenetrable. So that it can only be the individual themselves reaching out for the truth to bring it in, and never the truth being forced in. Never the lie being forced in either, but having to reach out for the lie. So how do you fix this situation when the one who's reaching out to take in the information is crazy and sees the bad information as good and the good information as bad and keeps going for the poison thinking it's medicine and avoiding the medicine thinking it's poison? And if you're a God who cannot, who will not take away the freedom and the sovereignty of an individual to make their own decisions. How do you save them? How do you save them? Well, Jeremiah 17 and verse 10 gives us one clue. I, the Lord, search the heart. I test the mind, even to give to every man according to his ways, according to the fruit of his doings. Does God know what's in the heart? Yes, he knows. He knows what's in there. And so he brings the test. He brings a test. David prayed this one, Psalm 139, 23 and 24. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my anxieties, and see if there's any wicked way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. So, when all things are set up like this, do I know what's inside? Right? Well, if I put it in, I know what's in there. Do you know what's in there? You can only guess what's in here. How are we going to know? When it comes out, then you know what was in there. Right? The test and the trial is what knocks the cup over so that what's inside can come spilling out. Right? So if you are a God who has children who are crazy, and they can't see what's in their heart, in love, what will you do? You will bring test and trial so that they'll spill out, so that what's inside can come out so they can see it. Not to destroy them, but to save them. Test and trial is not for our destruction. It's for our salvation. So that the heart can come spilling out and we can see it and go, ah. You mean that was in here? Yeah. David prayed this prayer. And God could have answered him in person and said, well, David, since you asked, yes, I do know your heart. And let me just tell you, you're a murderer. You're an adulterer. You're a slanderer of my name. You're going to smear my name across the world for centuries. Think David would have believed him? No, Lord, am I not after a man after your own heart? Do I not delight in your law? Is it not my meditation day and night? Do I not hate your enemies? Have I not spent my life singing and praising you and fighting your battles and all that kind of stuff? No, Lord, surely not. You see, the craziness of our nature is so great that if God came and looked at us in the eye and told us what was wrong with our hearts, we wouldn't believe him. We wouldn't believe him. If you think you would, then you're better than the disciples. He told them over and over again. He said, oh, you of little faith. 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 And when they got to the end of the game, guess what they thought they had? Great faith. They thought they had great faith. And so when he said, all of you are going to desert me this night, did any of them believe him? No. Peter said, well, hey, even if all they do, I won't. Jesus said, okay, you, Peter, tonight, before the cock crows twice, you'll deny me 3 times. Did he believe him? No. He quoted Scripture on the way to the Garden of Gethsemane. He said, the Scriptures say, strike the shepherd and the sheep will scatter. All of you will desert me this night. Did any of them believe him? No. They all thought they had great faith. He told them over and over and over again. They still didn't get it. We're not any better than that. How did they get it? When did they finally get it? When they struck the shepherd and the sheep scattered. And they all deserted him. And then they had time to reflect. And they went, oh. It's true. It's true. David, God allowed him to have some free time, walking around on the portico of his palace, looks out, seeing Bathsheba taking a bath without her Sheba on. And he was like, whoa, you know. And, it should have been like, but no, it was whoa and a double take, triple take. And they asked somebody, what's her name? They said, oh, well, that's Bathsheba, Uriah's wife, right? You know Uriah, like one of your mighty men, Uriah, the Hittite, your mighty man. The granddaughter of Ahithophel, your counselor, that's her. David said, oh, invite her over. One thing led to another. She went back home. Certain monthly activity didn't happen. A little sick in the mornings, looking for some dry bread. And a little bump down here. And a letter sent to the palace. And a little lump right here. And David, he's like, okay, got to fix this one. He's a king. He's got ideas. He can fix it. Let's bring Uriah home. Have him go sleep with his wife. A little plausible deniability. He wouldn't do it. All right, let's try to get him drunk and then send him home and see if it'll happen. He still won't do it. Sleeping on the front porch of the king's palace. Everybody can tell that man did not go home with his wife. All right, plan C. Death warrant in his own hand. Send him back to the front lines. Now, in the process of Uriah losing his life, you think he was the only one that lost his life? No, there were others. Was David the only one that was involved in this plot? No, there were others. It always grows. It always grows. And David still didn't get it. Married Bathsheba, baby later, year later, he's still riding on his high horse. And God sends Nathan, the prophet. Nathan, in a very wise way, interacts with David because, prophets lose heads. They do. And especially when you come with these kind of messages. This rich man, all these sheep, poor man, one sheep. Stranger comes to the rich man and takes the poor man's one sheep and slaughters it and feeds it to the stranger. What should we do? You're the judge of Israel. Oh, how dare there be somebody that selfish in my kingdom? That man must pay back 4 times what he took, and he must die. You're the man. You're the man. And in that moment, the floodlights of God's love shone into the hell of David's heart. And he saw what he was, that he never would have believed had he not done it. It was not to destroy David that God allowed that to happen. It was to save him. But he would not believe it until he did it. And the same is true for you and I many times. We wouldn't believe that we were so evil until the evil comes out, and now we can't deny it because we did it. And that is not to destroy us, it's to save us so that we can see what's there and cry for something that we need. David wrote Psalm 51 after this experience. And he included this part of the prayer, create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a steadfast spirit within me. Do not cast me away from your presence, and do not take your Holy Spirit from me. Restore to me the joy of your salvation, and uphold me by your generous spirit. He cried out for a new heart that could see things in a different way, that could evaluate things according to God's way rather than man's way. Not being upside down, but being right side up, so that he could see it from the right perspective and respond to it the right way. You need that? Yeah, I need that too. And God answers that prayer in Ezekiel 36, 26, and 27 when he says, I will give you, what? A new heart. And put a new spirit within you. I will take this heart of stone out of your flesh and give you a heart of flesh. I will put my spirit within you and cause you to walk in my statutes, and you will keep my judgments and do them. He has a new heart for us. You want it? You want to see what it looks like? All right, let's go there. It's a new heart that still operates by gain and loss. Still evaluates things by gain, still evaluates by loss. There's still expectations, but it's a different love. It's a different love. This time it's a divine love. It's not human love. And divine love is just the opposite. Divine love, you see, Satan is not a creator. He doesn't make anything new. Solomon was true when he said there's nothing new under the sun. Satan, all he does is get what God has put together and he just turns it around. And that's evil. Evil is just taking what God has made in this way and turning it around that way. And so in the old heart, it was giving in order to receive. In the new heart, it's receiving in order to give. But receiving is sometimes understood in our context, in our language, as a passive process. No, this is an active receiving. So it's a taking in order to give. So true love, God's love, in a human or a creature context, takes from him everything that I need, and then it gives it away, right? And it's not an investment, it's a gift. Remember, God does not invest in his children. He can't invest in his children. That which he gives away is a gift without strings attached. And if you have a love that takes in order to give, then what is your gain? Your gain is to give. And the more you can give, the more gain you have. Now, you might not give as much, you might give less, but if you do so, it's not because you're trying to keep it to yourself. It's you're doing so because of them. Why? Because they might not be willing to accept as much. So you can only give so much. Or you know that, like, if you have a family member that's into drugs and alcohol, and you would love to give them $1 million if you had the $1 million, but you knew if you did, they would turn $1 million into $1 million of drugs and alcohol and kill themselves and kill others. So you would withhold it from them for their sake. But not because you're trying to keep it to you. Right? You have a willingness to give. If the conditions were right, you would do so. But the conditions aren't right. Right? As long as that's the case, then you're in gain. But the moment you keep it to yourself for your sake, you're at loss. And you're right back in the old heart. Now, what does this look like? Every once in a while, sometimes I struggle a long time with the Lord. And, wrestling with concepts and ideas and other things like that. I love having my walk-talk time with the Lord in the morning. And, because that's when I communicate with him and he can download stuff. And there's so much stuff I learn when I'm talking and walking with the Lord in the mornings. And so, one day I was having this walk-talk time with the Lord, and he gave me this thought, this idea. It was an illustration for this whole concept of taking to give. And it came to me, it just started coming and coming and coming, this whole storyline. And I was like, oh, I got to stop walking. I got to go inside and start typing. And I could hardly type fast enough to keep up with the storyline. I wish that was the case for other things I have to write, but it's not. But this one came out that way, and it was just beautiful. So the Great Opportunity Department Store. Just imagine that somewhere close to here, they've built a huge department store, and it's got every department that you can actually think of. And the footprint of this building is miles. And when you go shopping there, you don't have a shopping cart. You would get worn out. You have a shopping car to go through the store. And you've got all these different departments that you can go to, and you can find anything and everything that you need. And it has such buying power and potential that you get awesome prices, Walmart prices for Macy's quality, and so on. And you love shopping there. And they have plenty of people to check out, and they're friendly, and so on. So you go there and you shop, and you do this and you do that. And one day you're there, you're checking out, and the clerk is bleep, 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 and you're doing this. And the manager walks up to you, says, looks like you left your wallet at home. Yeah, I'm sorry. Can we just put the stuff aside? I'll go run home, grab my wallet, come back and pay for it. He says, no, don't worry about it. He hands you a store card, says, here, use this anytime you need to. And then he hands it to the clerk. Clerk takes it, swipes it, hands you your receipts. You got your goods. You're good to go. So you turn to thank him, and he's gone helping somebody else and whatever. And so you come back and you keep shopping like you normally do. And another day you find yourself in a similar situation. You're like, oh, there it is, the store card, but you don't have your bank card. And you're like, I don't know. Well, he said when you need to. And so you pay, and they swipe, and they hand you your receipt, and you're good to go. You're walking out, and you're not sure whether you did the right thing, but you're walking out, and there happens to be the manager talking to somebody, and he kind of gives you a side glance, and the side glance is, you get this idea, he knows what you just did, and it's okay. Oh, this is so weird. And so, you come back and you're shopping another day, and now you got a dilemma. Bank card, store card. Bank card, store card. Bank card, store card. Store card. And they take it and they swipe it, and you get your receipt and your goods, and you're good to go. That's just, now you're like, oh man, what kind of horizons are open to me now? And you're driving along, and you miss that red light. Your car's totaled, you're okay, they're okay, but And so you end up back at the store, driving around in a shopping car, and you realize, hang on, there's an auto department. Oh, let's go in there. And you find out they got every make and model and every type of whatever, and they have no high-price salesman, and the whole price, tax tag, and title's right there on the window, and then they tell you they can insure the vehicle too, usually at better prices than what you've got, and you check it out, and you're like, wow, several $100s cheaper every 6 months on your insurance too. All right, let's insure with you, and let's get the vehicle and pay for it with a store card. And they hand you all your paperwork, and you're good to go. Oh, this is so good. This is so good. And you're going on, and you're driving down, and you stop at some stoplight, and it's a long stoplight, and there happens to be somebody off on the side over there, and they happen to have a little cardboard sign that says, need help, God bless, thank you, or something like that. And happens to be a relatively young woman, and so you try not to make any eye contact, and and then you remember, hang on, the store card. Oh, and you roll down the window, you call her over and say, hey, I'll take you shopping. We'll get anything you need. So she gets in, you go back to the store, and on the way you find out she's got 3 children. They're in school, a daycare right now. They're in the shelter. Husband got sick. They had medical bills. They lost the home. She lost everything. She doesn't know how to pull out of this. She doesn't have any career skills. She's just got the children, and she doesn't know how to make it from, to day to day. She's just trying to figure this out. Your heart goes out to her. Get anything you want. Well, she doesn't want to presume on your generosity, so she picks out a few things here and there and so on. And you go and you check out with her, and you do so, and you pay for with a store card. That's right. They get you receipts and going, and you're heading out, and you get another one of those side glances by the manager who's taking care of something towards the front. And it's kind of like he's excited about what you're doing. And you're like, yeah, me too. And so you head out, and you drive her back to the shelter, and she's just thankful for all that you've done and whatever, and you go home and you keep doing your stuff, but you can't get her off your mind. Her and her situation and the children and everything like that. And one of these days you're back at the store driving around and you happen to go past another department. It's the real estate department. Oh, let's go in there. And so you check it out, and they've got commercial properties and private properties, and they've got land, and they've got homes, and they've got all sorts of stuff. And so you tell them the story about this woman in the shelter with the 3 children, and they said, well, let's look through and let's see what we've got. Oh, how about a 2-story house, 4-bedroom on a cul-de-sac with 1-acre lawn? Safe, no traffic going by. The acre's small enough, big enough for the kids, but small enough that it's not too much to take care of, and whatever. Oh yeah, it'd be great. Let's get that. Oh, and what we can do, we can get it in your name, and then you can bring her in later, and we can get things switched over into her name, and so you can get all this taken care of now. Oh, good stuff. All right. And how's she going to get there? Let's go back to the auto department. And, single woman with 3 children. And, okay, well, how about a minivan with leather seats? Because you can clean it up. Now we got to go to the children's department and get some car seats. And now hang on, you got to fill the place. So let's go to the interior decorating department. And they say, okay, well, let's have an appointment over there, and we'll meet you over there. We'll do a walkthrough, figure out everything that you need. And so you meet them there, and they say, well, how about a welcome mat here and a wreath on the door there, and let's put paintings on the wall there. And sorry, I did a southern thing, didn't I? Paintings and paintings. No, I'm moving to Missouri, so that's still the South, so I can keep doing that. All right. Table and chairs here, and these appliances there, and this bedroom set there, and how about a playground in the backyard? Yeah, they'd love that. And you do the walkthrough, and she's like, okay, once you pay for everything, we'll start getting people moving things out, and we'll get things set up. And so you go back to the store, and you pay for it all with a store card. And the crews start going out there, and they make sure that they get it all set up in the right place. And several days later, everything's set. Vehicles in the yard, the house is there, big bows on everything. And you go to the shelter, and there she is, and the kids are with her this time. It's the weekend, and you go and you tell her, hey, let's go shopping. I'll get you anything you want. And this time she has her kids with her, and they're not shamed about getting everything they want. And she's trying to keep them under control, and so they're not presuming on your generosity. And so you check out, and you got a bunch more stuff this time than you did before, and you load them and the stuff into your car, and you start driving back a different way. And you start heading through this neighborhood, and she's like, is this where you live? And you say, no. Do you like it? Well, yeah, it's nice. And you turn down this road, and it's a dead-end road, and you come to the end of a cul-de-sac, and you pull in front of this place, and there's a big bow, bow on there, and you turn to her, and you say, welcome home. And she looks at you like, what are you talking about? And you hand her the keys. You say, here's the house. There's the car. I got them for you. They're yours. And she begins to fall apart in front of you, She begins to cry, how is this possible? She gets out, hits the button on the vehicle, the doors come open, kids kind of run around in the vehicle for a little bit, goes to the front door, uses a key, it opens up, kids walk in, they see the playground in the backyard, boom, they're back there swinging, sliding, she's walking and crying from room to room, can't believe it's real. It's real. How did you feel when you take her to the store to get the few things that she'll take? You feel good? Yeah. How do you feel when you get her the house and the car? Better? Yeah. The more you can give, the more gain you have. But how much did it cost you? Nothing. It didn't cost you anything. You used the store card the whole time. You went shopping at the Great Opportunity Department Store, the God store. Right? So you went shopping at the God store, and you can go there and you can get anything you want for free. And then you give it away. And your joy and your life and your meaning comes when you take to give, and you take to give, and the more you can take and the more you can give, the more joy that you have. But what if you go to the store and you realize you can take all you want to? And so you take a house, and you take a summer house, and you take a winter house, and you take a fall house, and you take a spring house, and you take a boat, and you take a car, and another car, and an off-road vehicle, and an SUV, and this thing, and that plasma TV, and that other thing there, and you keep going to the store, and you keep taking, and 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 accumulating. How do you feel in a year or two? Empty. Absolutely empty. Why? You do not live by taking to keep. Doesn't work that way. You live by taking to give. To give. That's right. Now, what are you going to do with her next? Take her to the store so that she can meet the owner or the manager, so she can get her own card. So she can go to the store and she can get whatever she wants anytime she wants to. And she can go. And now, guess what? She starts thinking about the other women and the families in the shelter. And now she can go and she can start setting them free too. Welcome to the law of God. And welcome to the love God created for us in the first place. Taking to give. Right? Now those fun little stories are back there on the thing too. The moment we keep it to ourselves, it's ruined. It's ruined. Jesus said, "He who loves his life will lose it, and he who hates his life in this world will keep it for life eternal." You see, in this earth, in this planet, in this world, in our upside-down state, how you keep something is you hold on to it. You put it in the bank account, you put it in a safe, you hide it somewhere around, you keep other people away from it. That's how you keep something in this world. But God is saying, Jesus is telling us, that is exactly how you lose it. Everything you keep, you will lose. Because you can't take any of it with you. And when you die, you'll lose everything you're holding on to. But everything you give away will be waiting. And you can't lose what you've given away. We've got it backwards. So God's not going to lose, so he makes his sun to rise on the evil and on the good and sends rain on the just and the unjust. It doesn't matter what you're like, God gives. Because that's who he is. He's not going to lose. He's not going to keep to himself. He gives. Right? Now, this heart has expectations. And this divine love takes first. Who do I take from? God. Do you need acceptance? Yes. Come, take all the acceptance you need from who? God. Then what do? Give it away. Because the moment you hold on to the acceptance, guess what happens? You lose it. You lose it. If you come and you take it and then you withhold it from others, you lose it. That's what Jesus said. Right? You need belonging? Yeah, come to God. Take all the belonging that you need. Then do what? Give it away. Be a place of belonging for others. For the moment you reject them, guess what? You lose it. You need forgiveness? Sure, come. Take all the forgiveness you need. You want it to remain yours? What do? Give it away. Yeah, give it away. For the moment you withhold it from others, you lose it. Right? Now, I used to think this was an angry ogre statement of God. Right? If you do not forgive men their trespasses, neither will your Father forgive your trespasses. I used to read this like this. If you, little person, are going to be a mean, angry ogre and not forgive others, then I'm going to be the bigger angry ogre and I'm not going to forgive you. So when you have that idea and you're the one that's bigger, what do? When one of your 6 children is the aggressor towards another of the 6 children, and the one comes wah, wah, wah to you because the other one slapped him or whatever, then the one who's bigger can come up to him and slap him too and say, don't ever do that. See how that feels? That's not what God's like. And that's not what this says. Jesus is simply iterating a truth, and that is, if you withhold it, you lose it. So don't withhold it. Give it away, right? I don't want you to lose it. I want you to have it, so you've got to give it away. Now this heart remembers it's not mine. I don't have it. It's not my possession. I'm only the steward, not the owner. I can't produce it. I'm not God. And I'm not my own to do whatever I want to with me. I am completely and absolutely dependent upon you. I'm not the source. I'm not the creator. I'm not any of that stuff. I must come to you to take everything that I need. But then I don't keep it to myself. I give it away to others. What does that look like in a relationship context? Well, you have a young man, young woman. This is an imaginary scenario because I haven't seen it yet, but we can use our sanctified imagination in these contexts, apply the principles and so on. So you've got a young man, young woman. Both of them are taking from God. They're giving to others. They find their joy in life from taking from God and giving to others. And they happen to come across each other, and they take from God and they give to each other. And that's nice. And they receive from others as from God, because every good gift and every perfect gift is from above and comes down from the Father of heavenly lights, with whom there is no variableness nor shadow of turning. So if there's any good that comes from somebody else, comes through somebody else, it comes from God, not from them. And so they receive good from or through others as coming from God. And their joy and their praise goes to God, not to the other. And their dependency is upon God, not on the other. And so this is how they're living their life. And they happen to give to each other, and God taps them on the shoulder and says, I want you to give more to her. It's like, oh, great, I love giving more, because giving more is a greater gain. And so he does, and God taps her on the shoulder. I said, I want you to give more back. Oh, great, I love that. And they do. And so both are taking from God and giving to others and to each other. And God says, I want this to be a little bit more selective and continue to increase over time. And each of them, are they happy with this? Yeah, this is a good idea. I like this, Lord. Right? Take from you and give to others, and to give more and take more and give more and take more and give more. Oh, it's beautiful. And eventually God taps him on the shoulder and says, I want you to keep giving to her for the rest of your life. Oh, this is good. This is really good. You're going to have to convince her. Don't worry, I've got it taken care of. He taps her on the shoulder, says, he's going to ask you a question. The answer to it is yes. I want you to give to him the rest of your life. Oh, this is good. And so he proposes, and she says yes. And you don't have to have a long engagement in a situation like this. And they get married. And guess what doesn't happen after marriage? Everything doesn't go in reverse. And perhaps, I'm not saying that this would necessarily be the case, but perhaps after marriage, a little while into it, God taps him on the shoulder and says, I need you to go over here to this continent and do some mission work for a while. And I need you to stay here behind and do some mission work here. And so, separate for a while. Do they miss each other when they're separate? Yes. Why? They don't miss what they might receive from each other. They miss what they might give to each other. Right? Because wherever they are, they have their source. And they can receive, they can take from God all that they need every time wherever they're at. But they miss what they might give to each other. And there are certain and special ways that God has created in that marriage relationship. And when you have a relationship that builds over time, there are ways that you can give that is deeper and greater and broader than you could if it's just an early superficial type of relationship. And so there's a greater joy that comes in that giving. and a greater meaning and a greater purpose. And so when they come back together again, then there's a renewal of that deeper meaning and joy and purpose of taking from God and giving to each other. And there's nothing that steps into that marriage to ruin it. Because they don't expect anything from each other. They expect everything for each other. You see, in this kind of heart and this kind of relationship, yes, I would expect my wife to love me. But I wouldn't expect her to love me for my sake. I would expect her to love me for her sake. Because if she were to withhold the love from me, it would destroy her. And I don't want her to be destroyed.
Thank you. There we go. All right. So we've got temporary while we're getting more permanent. All right. So yes, I would expect her to love me for her sake, not for my sake, because I get what I need and I take it from the Lord. He's the source. And everything that I have, oh, there we go. And everything that I have that I receive good from others or through others, I recognize comes from Him. So my dependency is completely upon Him. The moment my dependency becomes on them, then they become my idol. And everything gets messed up. Everything gets messed up. Now, Jesus, He lived this life. He said, foxes have holes, the birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay His head. He didn't lay claim on any possession. Jesus, did He produce a whole lot on His own? He said, I can of myself do nothing. It's incredible what you can do when you can't do anything. Right? And did He think that He was His own to do whatever He wanted to do unto Himself? No. He said, most assuredly I say to you, the Son can do nothing of Himself but what He sees the Father do. But what He sees the Father do. For whatever He does, the Son does in like manner. So He was completely dependent. Completely dependent. He was the perfect example of this heart, of having expectations for others, not from others, of having His Father as His source to take, and to others He had a relationship of giving, and He gave good gifts, not good investments to men. And the more He could give, the more joy that He had. And He never kept anything for Himself in any selfish way. If there was any way that He gave less, it's simply because they would not receive more, or it's because for their sake it would not be working out well if we gave as much. And like He said to the disciples, there are many things that I wish to give to you, to tell you, but you're not ready. You're not ready. And when we look at Jesus and the incredible price that He paid on the cross, you can see the beauty of that heart and how it responds under test and under trial. And this heart is free. It's free. Because you no longer have others as your source. You don't have to be a slave to them. God is your source. He's trustworthy. You can trust Him. You don't have to control Him. And He's a everlasting ready supply. You can take anything you need every time you need it. You are free. Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a steadfast spirit within me. I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit within you. I will take from you your heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh. Anybody want that heart of flesh? It's a gift. Can't earn it. You can't force or will your way from this side to that side. Just doesn't work. You can't give him the heart. But you can choose whom you will serve. And when you choose to serve him, then he will come in and he will change your heart and give you a new one so that your gains will align with his gains and your losses will align with his losses. And then decisions that align with God's will and his law will be natural. Natural. You want that? Yeah, let's pray and ask for it. Dear Heavenly Father, oh, what an awesome God you are. Thank you for such a beautiful love. Oh, Lord, our hearts are miserable. It's such an ugly, And to think that we thought it was so good when it's so evil. But Lord, thank you for something that is far greater than we have ever experienced or known. We want it. We need it. We must have it. And you died so that you could give it to us. And you promised that you would give us a new heart and put a new spirit within us. And so, Lord, now we ask, and we thank you for answering. And we thank you for that new heart. In Jesus' name, amen.